Welcome. This is Samantha Skelly, and you are listening to the Hungry for Happiness podcast, where we dig deep and discover how to reconnect into your body, heal your relationship to food, and finally feel the liberation and freedom you desire. Kleenex is encouraged, and pants are optional. What's up, Phoenixes, and welcome to episode 004 with my soul sister, Miss Kelsey Grant. I absolutely love this conversation. It's super juicy. It's full of giggles, I must warn you. And we're touching on a topic that I feel is super important for women who don't acknowledge and allow themselves to feel angry and to process anger effectively. So often we're walking around this planet with so much suppressed anger, rage, and emotion. And that stuff needs to be cleared and processed because it's not good, it's not bad. It's just emotion. Information. That's all it is. And once we allow ourselves to clear that, we get to experience those higher vibrating emotions of bliss and freedom and liberation in our bodies. Kelsey is a love and relationship educator who runs an organization designed to help men understand women and women understand men. Currently, she's teaching A Year of Love, her flagship program, and producing her one-day event, Get the Love Worth Having, with her incredible team. Together, with her team, they're dedicated to teaching men and women how to attract and keep high quality love and high value relationships worth having. Grab a cup of tea and enjoy this episode. What's up, Phoenixes, and welcome back to the Hungry for Happiness podcast. I am so excited for this episode. I just said to Kelsey before I hit record, there's going to be a lot of giggles to edit out. So sorry in advance to my podcast producer, but you all heard me introduce her in the intro, and Kelsey's my homegirl. You know, I was one of Kelsey's clients. She sorted my relationship shit out. What was that? 2 years ago or so, I worked with Kelsey, and she is, as far as like the realm of relationships, intimacy, love, oh my God, my mind was blown. And especially the work that we did around men. I did this course called the essence of the masculine. I don't know. It's something like that. It was back in the day. It was like back in the day. Yeah. And it was how I was relating to men. And I realized for the first time in a long time, like, Jesus, I was totally emasculating men, and Kelsey's work just really allowed me to see that in bright light. So I know we're going to get into a little bit of that today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, girl. So the first question we ask all our guests is, what is the number one thing about life that makes you feel most alive?
The number one thing about life that makes me feel most alive. I'm going to go with gratitude. Like the second I connect into gratitude, and I felt it this morning actually when I woke up, and I was like, how do I charge myself up? And how do I like turn myself on today? I don't mean sexually, although that's important, but that's not what I'm talking about in this particular instance. I was like, how do I like reboot, like ready to start my day? And so I looked out the window, and it's bright and shiny and sunny and blue sky. I'm like, oh, grateful. That's how I start. And I felt this the second I started thinking about the things that I was grateful for before my feet even hit the ground. And that to me is the thing that has me come most alive. And it's something that no matter where I am, what I'm doing, what's going on in my life, it's something that I can always connect in with. And so it's not dependent on where I'm going, what I'm doing, who I'm with. It's innate within me. And that's the thing that really calls me to life.
I love that. And I think like a lot of people talk about gratitude, but what you really touched on there, and I just want to kind of extract, is just like the felt sense feeling of gratitude, rather than being like, here's my 10 things I'm grateful for, and let me just like manufacture them in my mind and move on with my day because that's what everyone says I should do. Like what you're talking about is like actually taking a moment, creating like magic in the moment, and like truly feeling what it feels like to be grateful.
Yeah, it's like this heart expansion. Like I feel like my heart is about to burst in like the best possible way. Like how I felt the first time I went to Disneyland is how feel when I play with gratitude. It's just so good. And it's like the happiest place on earth, but it's now here in my home, in my heart.
I love that. I love that. Happiest place on earth, but it's at home. That's beautiful. So you're in the process of building this incredible love empire, which I admire so much. And I had the pleasure of sharing a stage with you at the Hungry for Happiness live event in Vancouver. And my community just went gangbusters for your stuff, Kelsey. Like the way you deliver it and like how you really talk about love, sisterhood, relationships is just in like a profound, direct, beautiful way. And that's the stuff I want to dig into today. A conversation that comes up in my community all the time is relationships, of course, right? We always want to know, when am I going to get paid and when am I going to get laid, right? And so I want to start there. And I want to, you speak to this a lot in your work. You've coached me on this concept of like truly falling in love with ourselves before we fall in love with others. And in our world today, where there's like, we're on timelines. We're like, oh my gosh, I'm nearly 30 years old. I'm nearly 35 years old, whatever it is. I need to be married. I need to have a kid. And so we take action out of lack and out of scarcity, and relationships always fail when it's, and not even like fail as a divorce, but I consider a failed relationship when you're in a relationship and you're fucking unhappy. And so, that's a failed relationship. I actually think there's like this point of like gracefully, breaking up is actually more of an act of love for ourselves than staying in something that of course. So I would love for you to dig into like this concept of like, what does it truly mean to fall in love with ourselves first? Because that's a concept a lot of people just don't understand. And you have a really clear way of describing that.
Sure. I mean, I think it's really important to also just say that it's possible to love other people if you don't love yourself. Mm-hmm. It's just the depth to which you can love someone else matches the depth to which you love yourself. So if we don't have love for ourselves, if we fundamentally do not like who we are, there's only so far we can go with that other person. And it'll often like find its way into this really sticky situation where we're overcompensating, we're over-investing into a relationship to try and make up for something that we believe that we lack. And you choose people not from a place of alignment, but from a place of our unconscious and unhealed wounding. And that is never going to go well. We are just going to keep repeating the same pain patterns over and over and over until we get in the ring with ourselves. And when we get in the ring with ourselves, what that means is you don't just get to like and love all of the glorious bits about you. It's not like, oh, I love my hair and I love my eyebrows and I have a great collarbone.
Your eyebrows are looking pretty fine right now. For those of you who are just listening, check out the video.
I did them just for you. Thanks. And me, of course.
You love yourself.
Because I love myself. But if we go down this path of only like finding love and appreciation for the parts that are socially acceptable or what society deems as worthy or valuable, we're missing a huge part of the game. Because what self-love actually requires of us is to meet our darkness. And it requires us to dig into those places that we don't want to go, but they ultimately come out in partnership. So if we don't meet that part of ourselves, it's going to come out in a passive aggressive way with our partner, or we're going to project it onto our partner and say, that's them. I don't like that part of them, but it's actually a part of us that we can't be with.
Yes.
Yeah. So to me, self-love and that whole concept is if we really want to move into the world of partnership, because there is a difference between relationship and partnership. Partnership is two people being a team in love. They are building, they're co-creating, they're amplifying each other's light. A relationship is somewhere that you go to, compensate for something that you think that you lack.
Oh, let's dig into that a little bit more, because I think that's a concept that's quite, I know a lot of listeners are going to be like, but I totally get it. And I know exactly what you're talking about because I am a fan of your work. So let's talk about the profound difference between a relationship and partnership. Just on that a little.
And I think before we even can get to the world of partnership, we have to experience the world of relationship. We have to experience what it means to go into a relationship with the idea of what can I get out of this? Mm-hmm. Instead of the partnership question is, what can I give to this union?
Yes.
And so it's really a matter of intention, like why we're doing what we're doing. So in a relationship, we may choose someone, as a status symbol. We may choose someone because they look good. We may choose someone because of the resources that they have, or they may choose us for the same reasons. It's surface. It's not deep. It's not based on actual alignment. It's based on, what's socially acceptable and valued in our culture. When we move into partnership, we kind of have to like buck the system and be like, I'm here for a bigger reason. This partnership, this dynamic, this container is for our mutual evolution. And we are here to grow and expand and really explore new terrain of possibility and really explore who we've come to this planet to be. And partnership becomes the vehicle for two legacies to be built. And relationship, on the other hand, is a place where it gets really dramatic really fast. So we see a lot of woundology in relationships because we don't know how to be responsible for ourselves. We don't know how to be with our own darkness. How can we be with someone else's darkness? And then we get into the container of relationship where the other person is a mirror for us, and they're like reflecting all of that shit back to us. And we're like, I don't want to be with it. And so I'm either going to make them wrong, or I'm going to go do some shitty behavior and like fuck shit up. And I hope I can swear on this podcast.
You can say anything. I always warn listeners, so I'm like, put headphones in. It is explicit up in here.
And we get into this world where we just let sabotage take over when we're in an unconscious relationship. But then when we move into the track of partnership, that's the track where we have already claimed ownership over ourselves, our experience. We've made contact with our shadow. We've made contact with those places within ourselves that we try and keep hidden from the world, and we out it. We learn how to tell the microscopic truth on ourselves. And inside of that skill set, we can now show up fully in partnership, which doesn't mean partnership doesn't have conflict. There's absolutely conflict in partnership. It's just, it's dealt with in a very different way. It's dealt with in a way where it leads both people to a greater understanding of who they know themselves to be. And it helps fine tune their communication skills. It helps fine tune their alignment because they clearly got off track somewhere. But if there isn't that awareness, and we just are making all of these assumptions about our partner, and if we're dating someone of the opposite gender, we've got a whole other world of stuff to deal with. Because we are hardwired differently. And so the world of partnership takes that into account. It takes into account the prioritization of learning the other operating system. If I don't know the other operating system, there's no way that I can relate to men in a way that brings the best out of them and allows the best in me to come forward. Like I'm going to get lost in that mix of he's like acting on purpose to upset me. He's doing these things on purpose because they're different from what I would do hardwired as a woman. And without understanding that, it gets messy. That's where the drama comes in. That's where all the fighting comes in, but fighting without resolution, fighting without consciousness. Like there's a difference between fighting and conflict, and fighting a lot in relationships. Or, when we have that momentum going, then we see two people who are isolated in their relationship. So we see people who feel so alone, even though they are with someone. That is such a tragedy, I think, because if we actually are willing to meet ourselves, we then can meet another. And that's where true intimacy really begins to take form. And that only happens in the world of partnership.
So how does commitment tie in with relationship and partnership? And is there a higher level of commitment in the realm of partnership versus relationship?
I mean, you can be committed in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever that means to you. For some people, it means being monogamous. Other people, that means being in an open relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But commitment in partnership is different because you're not necessarily committing to the other person. You're committing to yourself. And I commit to myself to show up for myself, to show up for my alignment, and trust that me being in my alignment, him being in his alignment, that's what actually creates the conditions for partnership.
Got it.
But in a relationship, we're committing to each other. So then if the other person breaks that commitment, you're shattered. Your entire world comes crashing down, and we get into this mindset of, I will never recover, or I will never trust again. I love and I get hurt. And so what is the point? And I'm never doing that again. So then we throw on our armor and gear up for the next round. And there is no room for possibility when two guarded people are meeting and trying to do this dance of relationship. No wonder it's such a mess. It's such a mess.
That's profound. It's super interesting. Like this whole concept of being in a conscious relationship, that term is thrown around a lot. And it takes so much fucking communication to be in a conscious relationship. And it takes a level of ownership and responsibility like I've never experienced before, ever, And so currently I'm in I guess it would be like a relationship, question mark.
Am I? What zone are we in here?
I'm still trying to define the zone. To be determined. Okay, people, to be determined. Not really sure what's happening right now. I'm just kidding.
We're in the dating phase.
Yeah. Okay. I guess it's dating. It's dating. I'm dating him. So, however, I'm dating a man who is so conscious, so aware. And it's the first time I've actually been in a conscious relationship. And I'm realizing the quality of it now. Whereas every time he pisses me off, I know that's my shit. I'm like, okay, cool. He did that. Therefore, what is that? What's in me that's not yet healed? And it's actually so freeing. Although it's highly triggering and I get activated a lot, it's freeing because I know this is grounds for tremendous healing. Whereas in previous partnerships, I guess they were relationships, it was like, oh my God, what a dick, what an idiot. Oh my God, here he goes again. Blah, blah, blah. Right. And it's like, I didn't take ownership. So there's a high level of ownership is what I'm hearing from you in partnership.
Absolutely. And getting curious about the other person's behavior, because let's be honest here. Sometimes we are assholes.
Yeah.
Like we are. And that means our partner is also going to be an asshole sometimes. So even if we get triggered because they are legitimately being an asshole, yes, there's one part of the truth where you have to own that part in yourself. But then there's another degree of truth where you have to set the tone for a standard to be met and need to be met. And if they're actually being a dick, then there's a conversation to be had there about agreements, a conversation to be had about standards and how we are actually going to agree to be with each other. Because even if you're pissed off and you're having a shitty day, it is not okay to come and dump that on your relationship and dump that on your partner. But that's what happens a lot of the time because there's safety, there's emotional safety because it's familiar. And when things are familiar, then we relax and we let ourselves be seen, even if that means being a total and complete asshole. And so it's important to not take too much responsibility. Like you have to own your own stuff.
Right.
But this is, again, a thing that happens in relationship where we take more responsibility than is ours to take. We try to take our responsibility for it, but also theirs.
Got it. Yeah.
And so the world of partnership is, okay, this is triggering me, like what's going on for me, and what you did was not okay. And we need to actually talk about that because I'm not going to do this dance with you.
Yeah. You bring up a really interesting point, and I realized this about a year ago. I was dating men who I viewed as projects constantly.
Yeah.
I know that one. All right. I was in a 5-year relationship, and I loved him dearly. He is and was an incredible person. And I always wanted to change him and fix him and make him better and make him more ambitious and like constantly. And I was like taking on his stuff and like trying to fix it. And so by virtue of me doing that, I put myself in the masculine constantly. It's like, let's fix it. Let's make it better. And so because of that, what happens naturally? He has to be in his feminine, right? And then I was like, why are you not being a man? And like, I did not get it, right? I'm like,
irony.
No, the irony. Goddamn irony. So I'm in the bottle, right? I can't see what's going on. You can't read the label when you're inside. And now I look at that and I'm like, my heart actually hurts for him and how I treated him. Completely emasculated him and did not give him a chance to be a man because I was constantly trying to fix him and change him and take on his shit as my own.
Yeah, it's wild how often we do that. And going back to that conversation about self-love, the second that we go into a relationship to change someone, what we're saying unconsciously is that I do not accept you as you are. There's something fundamentally flawed in who you are that needs to be changed, that needs to be corrected. And I will be your savior. I will, deliver you. What an arrogant thing to do. And what it also points to is the avoidance of looking at that part of ourselves, the part of ourselves where we may feel like we are not measuring, up. And dealing with that own level of self-rejection, because we can never actually reject another person before we've actually rejected ourselves. So we have to reject ourselves before we can even be in the zone of rejecting another person for how they are. And every time we want to change someone, we're rejecting who they are in this moment. And so if we can get to a place where we're not self-rejecting, and we've danced with our shadow and we understand what that part of our psyche is meant to teach us, and we can sit with our sadness, we can sit with our anger, we know how to process it responsibly, because, meeting your darkness does not mean being consumed by it. There is a difference. And when we meet our darkness, it means we have to actually process it out. And for women, a lot of that unprocessed stuff is anger. We don't want to make contact with our anger, but we are seriously pissed. And we have good reason to be. Let's look at the last 2,000 years of humanity here. It hasn't exactly been rainbows and unicorns for women. It's been a bit of a shit show. And it makes sense that generationally that anger has been passed down, and we need to stop. We need to stop that, because being pissed about history or being pissed about our life and our relationships with men does not create the conditions for love to blossom.
That's a beautiful point. And something to that point as well is, as women, one of our best superpowers is our intuition. And when we are holding rage and anger and we're pissed off and all of that kind of stuff, we just have no access to our intuition. It does not speak to us. When we don't have that connection into our body, we can't communicate. Our body cannot communicate to us. And effectively, I love what you said. Meet your darkness, but don't be consumed by your darkness. I think that's a beautiful distinction. So often people think, I don't want to even look at my darkness because I'm terrified of being swallowed up into it.
Of course.
And so if you could just speak to that as well, so if they're not going to be consumed by it, then how do we meet it and heal through it and process it? Kind of just talk about that a little bit.
So I'm going to talk just about women right now, because I imagine that is the majority of the community listening.
Pretty much 95%. But we love our men too.
We do. And it's it's a whole different ballgame for men processing their relationship to anger. It's just very different. And we could talk about that for days. But for women, one of the things that when it comes to meeting our darkness that we need to really be aware of is the relationship to the feminine and the movement. So movement is very much a feminine concept. So if we think of masculinity and masculine energy as a fixed box, so it's structure,
Mm.
And then feminine energy is doing this. It's chaotic. It's moving. It's always moving. It's always creating. It's always recreating and moving. And without structure, that energy gets completely chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
We learned that in science class, like free radicals everywhere. I don't even know if that's true. All the science people don't, like you can
don't comment on that. It could be true. It could not be true. We don't know.
Yeah,
but
we
let's
don't
just
know.
go with it.
Really wasn't paying attention.
It sounds really good.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Free radicals everywhere.
Everywhere. But if we don't have a container for that energy, it does turn chaotic. And so for the feminine, we have to understand that movement becomes one of our biggest containers. And movement becomes such a beautiful vehicle to actually shift and transmute that energy. So let's say that I'm pissed about something that's happened, and I have every right to be pissed. I need to move my body.
Oh, this is good.
And I need to put on some seriously pissy music and thrash around in my apartment, and like just get angry and like get in my body and move it out. Another thing that is really effective is punching pillows, like having a grown-up temper tantrum, but not doing that out in public or with someone else, unless it's your sisters and you've actually set the stage for us to have a conscious tantrums. Don't pull other people into that mix. This is a very sacred and private experience.
Yes.
Unless you have agreement with other women that this is what we are going to do together.
Yes. You taught me this. So I'm a very vocal person. I'm loud. I talk loud. I laugh loud.
Weird.
Yeah, I don't know. Weird. I know it's this new thing. I
never got that from you.
So a few months ago, I was buying my vehicle, the car I just got, and I'm at the dealership, and the guy's like, "Do you want to take it for a test drive?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, let's go." So we're like driving down the road in Coquitlam, and I just turned to him and I go, "So how soundproof is this vehicle?" And he's like, "Yeah, you can turn up the stereo and like people won't be able to hear you." I was like, No. What if I scream at the top of my fucking lungs? Can anyone hear me? Because this is one of the things you taught me, Kels, is like the need, like there's anger trapped in our bodies and we need to release it through these modalities. And what I still do is I get in my car and I just scream my head off. And I do this in the middle of family dinners. And I share this story in my book where my brother, my dad, my mom, whoever will just like irritate me because, families are really good at that. And I'll just be like, "Excuse me, got to go to 7-Eleven to grab something." And I'll just hop in my car and just scream bloody murder for like 5 minutes. And then I'll get back on the dinner table. I'm like, "Oh my God, I love you guys so much. I'm so grateful for you." But it's so true. It's like, not aggression directed at someone else, but responsible, like taking responsibility to process that anger in real time so it doesn't fester and manifest and come out in another way that's not funky.
And that's a great distinction you just made between anger and aggression. They're two different things, but they're often collapsed on each other. So if we actually are responsible about our anger and we give it space to coexist in our human experience, we do not have to worry about aggression. Aggression only shows up when we refuse to meet our anger. And it has to get expressed somehow. And so for a lot of women, it will come out as passive aggressive behavior, passive aggressive comments. The shit that women say to each other is it just mind-boggling to me sometimes. Yeah. And then let's not even talk about how a lot of women treat men. It's gross. It's truly gross. But like we have to understand where that comes from. It comes from a place of like not having the tools and the skill set and the permission to dance with their anger. It's not socially acceptable. And so as we blow that open and we start making it socially acceptable for women to meet their anger and then dance with it, all of a sudden we see that experience of aggression shift. And same with men. Like, it's very hard for women to be with men's anger because they can't be with their own. And so we make men wrong for being angry, and they have a very different relationship to their anger. And so we make them wrong for it. And so they have to find a way to transmute that as well. And it comes out in aggression. And aggression equals violence. And so if we do not start making it socially acceptable to be pissed, if people do shitty things, there are things that are happening in this world that you have every right to be pissed off about. But you do not have a right to take that anger and turn it into aggression and be violent with yourself or with another person.
That's a beautiful distinction.
Yeah.
So taking responsibility when you feel that, when you feel like the initial and to know that you can create a safe space for you to process that anger and for you to clear your emotional landscape so you think clearly and get back in alignment. Because I think what we're really looking at here is we're just afraid to face our truth. The truth is you're angry. Yeah. And in that whole concept of like discovering our truth, there's a lot of truths that we don't want to admit that are there. The truth that we're in a job that we hate, or a relationship that we hate, or we're festering a bunch of anger. We're super sad about something, and God forbid we like lean into it, because the second we open the can of worms, we then have to take responsibility for it all, because we have awareness around it all. So it's easier to suppress and suppress and suppress. You said this at the live event, and it could be your quote or someone else's. What we fight strengthens. Is that your quote, or is that?
It's not. I wish it was. It's so brilliant.
It's a good one, isn't it? It's a good one, but it's like
really wishes it was mine.
Yeah. Well, you can I don't know, do something with it.
Eckhart Tolle. I'll be his spokeswoman.
Eckhart Tolle, Kelsey Grant, tomato, whatever.
We live within close proximity to each other. It's fine.
It's totally fine. It's good. So when we fight our anger, when we deny it, when we pretend it's not there, all it does is it strengthens. It goes down into our bodies. It lifts weights. It comes up when we don't expect it as well. It could be someone cutting us off, or it could be, our brother saying something, or our husband, not taking out the trash, and we go fucking ape shit on him because we've not taken responsibility to process that in our own time, in a safe container. Yeah. Brilliant. I love it.
Yeah. And a safe feminine container too, because how women will process anger is different than how men will process it. And it's important that you really make contact with your feminine energy when you're processing your anger. Otherwise, we're rejecting our femininity while we're processing our anger, which makes our inner being even more angry.
Okay, let's talk about that. What does that look like?
So that's where we move into the world of like dance and movement, because when we're actually moving the body and, vocally expressing is great because it actually does create a clearing, and then we have to drop back into our bodies. So,
got it.
So it's great if you want to go scream or like punch pillows and do shit like that, but then you have to do the second step, which is drop back into your body. Otherwise we stay, and if you're listening, like I'm gesturing to my throat here, we stay in the head. If we are in our heads, guess where else we are? In our masculine. And to be in our feminine, we have to drop back into our body.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. That's so good. I had, do you know who Susanna Frioni is?
No.
I had her on my podcast yesterday. I recorded her, and she does these things called sacred dance parties. And it's exactly what you're talking about. You're like, exactly. And I think this conversation of containers to process anger in a very safe and feminine way is something that like people are just not talking about, because anger is just like, no, you're a woman, be classy, don't express anger, don't swear, don't do any of this kind of stuff. And it's so damaging to women, because we're walking around disconnected, head and heart, mind and body, with so much suppressed anger in our systems. And it's causing us to be so overwhelmed. It's the root of a lot of weight gain, carrying anger on our bodies. It's a physical manifestation, which is what we talk about a lot in our community, is like, it's super interesting when women give themselves permission to let go and release the anger that they're feeling in their bodies. What happens? They begin to see the physical release of the weight as well, because it's heaviness on our body that we don't need to be carrying. And it's about like forgiveness, right? Self-forgiveness, forgiving other people, like really and truly like cutting these cords, deciding to forgive, and then processing the residual trauma, anger, rage in our bodies through movement, through dance. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it so much.
So good.
So
And,
good.
often like we can't even get to the place of forgiveness. And this is a really cool thing to consider too, is like when people are really resistant to forgiveness, you can guarantee that they have unprocessed anger.
So you're suggesting process the anger first and then forgive. Ooh.
Because it actually creates the space for forgiveness. Because like you've experienced when you go into your car and you scream, there's an opening, there's a clearing that allows you to see things as they actually are, to see things in the lens of love, in the lens of gratitude. And if we're prematurely jumping to forgiveness, we're doing a spiritual bypass. So
yes,
we're jumping over our anger, we're jumping over our pain, and we're going right to, I'm going to seek the lesson, I'm going to figure this out, I forgive, like no hard feelings, when deep down, like the fires of rage are burning in your belly. And that does no one any good, especially you. And this is the life that you need to live for is your own.
Yeah.
And so if we do ourselves such a disservice by prematurely jumping to forgiveness when we haven't felt our way through our pain or felt our way through our rage or anger, we don't actually drop in to the truth of what forgiveness is. It's very challenging to mentally work around that. And that's all it becomes, is a mental workaround. It's a way to rationalize something. It's not an actually integrated feeling and experience of, I've truly let this go, because forgiveness is like completely letting go.
Completely letting go.
And letting go of a hope for a better past, or, that someone would be different in the future. Like it's all wrapped up in a complete letting go. And we cannot let go if there's something that is screaming for our attention in the background. And you and I are both performers, so this analogy works really well. But all of our emotions on the scale of human emotion, they all deserve stage time in your life. And so what we often do is we will allow like happiness, fulfillment, success, joy, those get center stage all the time. And then you've got these other experiences like anger, sadness, frustration, resentment. They're all in the wings waiting for their turn to go on stage and be met by the audience, to be seen, to be witnessed. They're not wanting to blow the fucking place down. They literally want to step out on stage and be witnessed. And so we have to create the space for those experiences to come to the stage of our life, be met, be witnessed. And the second they are, they're like, okay, that's great. I'm going to go backstage now and like do my thing. And then joy gets to come back out, and creativity gets to come back out, and passion gets to come back out. And they are the main characters in the stage of your life, but you have these supporting roles that occasionally do need to come and make their presence known on the stage of your life. And if we're trying to like hold them in the wings, like we can only hold it for so long before that pressure is going to blow. And when it does, that's what actually causes the entire theater, so to speak, to crumble to the ground.
Yeah. And it's this concept of the amount that the amount that the joy can be on the stage is the amount that you're willing to let the anger come out. And it's not in proportion to time, right? It's not like, okay, you need like 3 hours of misery in order to experience 3 hours of joy, but it's the depth, right? It's the depth of like how we're able to experience. And as a child, we let all the bros on the stage, right? It's like, come on, everybody. Let's go. And it's like, it doesn't matter where you are and what's going on. We're going to process that emotion. And as adults, we clear the stage. It's like, we only want to show joy. It's about looking good, right? So much of it is about like, how can I look good? How can I look happy? How can I make my Instagram feed like super sexy so everybody thinks like I'm a badass mofo? But really what we're doing there, which is we're denying what is. And as soon as we deny what is, we create disconnection.
Yes.
So, and disconnection leads to animosity, inner stress, tension, et cetera, disordered eating, binge eating, hating your body, smoking, sex addiction, whatever. Right. So I love this, like just letting them to come out to play and just really getting curious. Like, is there something in me right now that needs stage time? How can I honor that effectively? How can I lean into it? How can I love it, include it in my experience, and know that that too is a part of me? This anger, this sadness, this whatever it is like, that's all a part of me. And this is this whole overarching conversation that we're having today is that is self-love. Yeah. That is self-love. You know, there's a lot of people in our realm, in our world, who are talking about self-love in this like pukey, fluffy, woo-woo, like way. And it's like, let's only look at the bright. And that is this whole like spiritual bypassing thing that does no one any favors. And it's going to bite you in the ass. It's going to come up. It's going to come out to play. If you don't let it on stage, it's going to make its way on stage.
Oh yeah. It's going to bowl you over and burn down the house.
Burn down the house in not a very nice way.
No. And it feels so much better to actually create space to accept all of who you are. Because in the acceptance of all of who you are, you actually have now created the stage to accept another for all that they are. And you no longer have to feel threatened by their darkness. And that doesn't mean that you don't honor your boundaries or you accept bad behavior. Quite the opposite, actually. When you've met your darkness, you've met your strength. And so you can actually put a boundary and walk away from someone that's disrespecting your soul.
Oh,
And so we have to do this journey. We have to do this work. Otherwise we will keep setting ourselves up to experience more and more and more of that wound that we're trying to outrun in the first place.
I want to touch on this briefly because I think it's super, super important. I'm just being cognizant of time as well. This whole concept of having childhood wounds and us wanting to recreate them or find them, or like, can you just speak to that? Particularly pertaining to relationships.
Okay, we may have to do an actual other episode for this
because I could talk to you for 3 hours straight. We'd probably giggle for 2 hours and 45 minutes, but
totally. That's all part of the transmutation here.
Let's touch on it, and then let's totally do a follow-up episode on this because I don't feel it's totally responsible to just like touch it and then leave it, because it is such a big topic. So wounding in terms of our unconsciousness and our childhood experiences does not necessarily mean like a massive abusive trauma. It literally could be you went to your mom because you wanted to show her a picture that you drew. She was having, she just got off the phone with your father and they had a fight. And so she was short with you. And all of a sudden the association gets made that women can't be trusted. And, you need to guard yourself. Do not express your creativity. Do not express your joy. Do not express your heart because you get punished for that. Yeah.
And so that begins the workings of the wounding. And then we unconsciously create circumstances that will reinforce that story because it's familiar. We don't have the tools as children to really challenge the validity of our thoughts. And so our thoughts that we're having automatically anchor in as this is just what reality is. And then we get, to the point of adulthood where we've collected like 20 plus years of evidence to sit and suit that story. And then we have this profound awakening where we're like, whoa, I actually can challenge the validity of my thoughts. And is that actually the truth of the matter, that that was her intention when she did that? And we start to question reality. We start to question the assumptions that we made. We start to question the meaning that we've associated to the experiences of our lives. And if we don't do that work, we will always assume the worst in our partner. We will assume that they are just a function of that original source of pain.
Oh, so juicy.
Yeah, like we have to go down another rabbit hole for this one because
Let's do that. Let's do a whole
yeah.
episode on this. This is
Okay.
good.
Yeah, it's so good.
I love it.
But to leave it for today, like you can change that story.
Mm-hmm.
And just because you experienced wounding, and whether that was like a wounding, like what I just described, or an actual trauma, actual abuse, that can be processed and you can move through it and rewrite an entire new story. You are not a slave to what happened to you.
That's beautiful.
Power to like rise above it. But in order to rise above it, you have to admit that it's there.
That is so, so beautiful. I love that. And I think you touched on a good point. Like you have the power and ability to shift this, without the awareness, you can't do anything, but being prepared to do the work, facing the truth and knowing that, yes, you're going to hit pain and resistance and you get to change the story that will inevitably change your life and all of your future relationships. That is powerful stuff. I love it. Oh, so good, girl. I've loved this conversation so much.
Yeah, this is great.
I just love talking to you. You know, it's really great. Like this is the quality of our conversations all the time. Like, I was like, I kind of, there was a part of me that kind of forgot we were recording and I was like, we're just jamming out. So it's really beautiful that we can like bring these level of conversations to our community. So thank you so much for coming on and joining us. So tell us where we can find you and all your goodness.
You can find me. I mean, Instagram is the place that I am most active and I love throwing down on Instagram a couple times a day. So you can find me Radical Self-Love. You can find me on my website, kelseygrant.com, Facebook, Kelsey Grant, Radical Self-Love. And those are the best places to find me. Come play on Instagram. We have a lot of fun there.
Yeah, she throws on some funny stuff too. When I get like a notification that you tagged me in something, I'm like, woohoo! Yes! Funny. Well, girl, thank you so much for hopping on. You dropped some serious wisdom, pure wisdom on this episode. So thank you so much. You're just such a beacon of love and light and juiciness and giggle. So I'm just so honored to call you a best friend and just like a fellow, sister on this walk of life. So thank you so much, Kels.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening to this episode on the Hungry for Happiness podcast. You can join the conversation with women just like yourself at hungryonfacebook.com. Until next week, ladies, stay classy and badassy.